Hey guys, Jay here, and welcome back to another healing video. Today we are going to talk all about the gear you need, how to maximize your stats, and what healing skills are needed for effective wandbow healing in PvP. Additionally, we're going to be talking about some rotations as we go through the PvP skills. Time is valuable, so let's get right into your ultimate guide to wandbow healing in PvP, and feel free to skip to any section you need. So first we're going to start out with the goal for healing in PvP. Your goal as a healer in PvP is quite simple. Heal, and mitigate as much damage as you can, all without dying. Pretty simple, right? Yeah. So anyway, wandbow healing is the ultimate PvP healing class because all the utility that comes with it. Unfortunately, massive heals come at a price. 0 damage potential. Do not expect to do any damage on wandbow if you want to be the ultimate healer. This is much different than the PvE healing build where doing damage is expected. If you're interested in doing damage and healing, I recommend switching to wand staff. Ultimately, our goal as the healer is to do as much healing as possible while surviving an onslaught of stuns, crits, and damage. And we do this by prioritizing our stats effectively. For stat prioritization, we want to focus strength, perception, and wisdom in that order. Unless you are an advanced healer, then you would want to prioritize perception, strength, and wisdom in that order. And here's why. Survivability is huge for us as healers, and strength allows us to hit high health, increase damage reduction, and if we hit our strength 70 threshold, then we will have higher defensive stats, which all impact our survivability. But for my advanced PvP healers out there, I highly recommend going for that perception 70 stat threshold because you will be able to capitalize on the additional hit chance and CC skills more effectively while still having solid survivability. Either way though, if you cannot hit 70 perception, I would always trade higher strength over perception for that increased survivability. For me, because I'm always getting focused by, well, literally everything, I'm going to go for the high survivability kit to stay up a little longer while I'm improving my healing skills. With wisdom, it is good for mana, but it is not as vital as the other two because although cooldown reduction and mana is good, the trade-off for survivability is not worth it in my opinion. Finally, dexterity is just not worth our time as we're focusing on heals rather than damage. So to recap, strength equals survivability, perception equals buff duration, hit chance, and CC ability, and finally wisdom equals more mana. As we jump into the gear and traits, we will look at a couple builds which I have provided in the description for mid and end game depending on your playstyle and for reference as we're discussing gear. Before we get into the specific gear, I will be following this template for trait priorities: base stats, max health, melee and ranged endurance, skill damage resistance, and buff and debuff duration, all in this order. And here's why. Base stats will always make us tougher. Max health, melee and ranged endurance, and skill damage resistance will all help with survivability, and buff and debuff will give us a little bit more utility. If you can, just avoid evasion because if you don't have enough evasion, you'll take damage and it'll essentially become useless when faced with high level players. If you look at this endgame strength build, you'll notice in the stats section that we are able to hit our 70 threshold, which will give our overall survivability, but also hit our 60 perception for increased hit chance and 30 wisdom for more mana. This spread is solid because we are able to hit our main stat efficiencies. Alright, let's jump right into the gear starting with weapons. For all my PvP builds, I recommend these two weapons, the Lucuria's Coveted Tome and the Carnix Bow. These are a must for several reasons. The Tome provides great base stats, but what I really get it for is the passive, which gives us the ability to go stealth for 3 seconds when we get hit below 20% health. This is crucial for being able to survive the first wave of attacks, and honestly, I think it's more valuable than the Excavator's Scepter, specifically for PvP. The Carnix Bow is essential for this build to work because it provides insane base stats to strength, max health, and the passive overall helps our teammates range. I'm telling you, farm these two weapons as soon as you are able to. For gear, I wanted to try to get at least 2 set effects going to make a more well-rounded build that helps for survivability and healing. Grab the Shot Commander's Visor and Plate to get that additional damage reduction because of the set bonus and increased health and endurance. For our other set bonus, go for the Ascended Guardian Gloves and Pants as we get more base stat increases in cooldown speed. These two will also give great base stats, mana cost efficiency, and additional damage reduction. For the cape, go for the Forsaken Embrace as it gives more health and damage reduction. And for boots, get the Sabatons of the Field General as they provide good base stats and movement speed. For necklace, the Clasp of the Conqueror is definitely our best in slot as it provides really solid base stats, and same with the Bracers of the Primal King as it gives great trade options for us as well. For the rings, check out the Universal Power power and the sapphire band. If you can get your hands on these two, 100% do it because they are the best in the game for achieving these stats. Finally, the belt of the bloodlust adds max mana, strength, and movement speed. Overall, this build has insanely high max health of over 15k, decent max mana at 9k, and cooldown speed of 27%, and solid buff and debuff duration. This kit gives us the ultimate survival build while also providing great healing stats. Now for the perception build, on the other hand, I just switched the headpiece, legs, and belt to items that hit our perception to 70 threshold. Again, if you can hit 70 in perception, great, but if you are unable, always get your strength up instead. Also, make sure to check out these builds in the link below, as it also includes the mid-game PvP gear and stats. But speaking of the mid-game, here's a quick breakdown of only blue gear hitting amazing stats, but essentially we are still following my previous principles of hitting stat thresholds while focusing on strength and perception. Alright, for the PvP skills, we're going with a full-on healing build. There can be a little nuance to this, but this is what I personally use in guild versus guild and small-scale arena. These are purely supportive and healing skills that enable our team to dominate. Additionally, these provide the survivability we need to stay on the battlefield, and if used correctly, make as an unkillable raid boss that really can't do any damage. If you are a more advanced healer, I would recommend swapping out the time for punishment skill with ensnaring arrow, as you'll be able to root enemies more effectively than someone like me who is still trying to figure it out. For passives, same principle applies here. We just want all the healing and survivability we can get our hands on to effectively help our team and save ourselves if needed. For specs, starting with wand and swift healing, get these three to help keep you and your team up. Place salvation, grab these two to help mitigate debuffs and increase range. For invincible wall, get these two to maximize damage mitigation. For fountain of life, just get the increased range. Time for punishment, grab enchanting time and effect duration to enable your team's DPS. And for the bow specs, grab vitality and whirlpool for nature's blessing, as this synergizes with healing touch. For healing touch, grab duration increase to increase flash wave effectiveness, and change arrow vortex to tornado for increased CC. Finally, turn flash arrow into flash wave and add these two to maximize its potential. For weapon mastery for the wand, run the middle until a redemptive penance, and then run the rest of the top line. For bow, run the top line and then halfway through the middle. Now moving into the rotation recommendation. Because the skill possibilities and rotations are endless, I will try to give you guys some basic tips and potential rotations to try out when using these specific abilities. For any PvP situation, whether small or large scale, first identify either your tank, initiator, or hard hitter, such as a greatsword daggers user. Once you have, begin the match using the healing touch to try to get 3 stacks on them before the fight. Once the fight begins, try using this pocket rotation. Initiate with flash arrow to blind and give a healing proc from healing touch to the person that you identified. Then invincible wall, blessed barrier, followed by blitz to get your barrier back, then healing touch to get another stack, and then nature's blessing to remove negative effects and give health regen to maintain pressure. Throw in purifying touch if they are stunned, followed by time for punishment to give more DPS, and then finish the rotation with tornado to help with CC. The idea of this rotation is to mitigate initial damage using blind from flash arrow, shields to help against the first wave of DPS spam, and nature's blessing to ultimately keep the pressure up. Additionally, be sure to use swift healing for emergencies, fountain of life for when your teammates are grouped, and always prioritize your health too so that you can keep your teammates up. For my final recommendations, for gear, remember to take your time going from green to blue to purple. Get all your blue gear traded before transitioning to purple, as a fully traded blue is better than a base set purple. Also, before you make the transition from blue to purple, make sure that you're actually able to trade out those purples, as it will be pretty expensive when you make the transition over. Additionally, don't get too wrapped up with your power score or gear score, or whatever it's called, because ultimately your traits are what determine your strength, and as you trait your greens and blues, you will naturally increase your gear score. For the PvP, just relax. Try to figure out some combinations and see what works for you. If you die, don't worry. Just note what you could have done better, highlight what you did well, and move on to the next engagement. Lastly, here's my current gear if you were curious, and honestly, I messed this up a ton because I didn't know much of what was going on when I first got into the game, and I spent way too many resources on things I didn't actually need. Either way, I'm still following my stat and geared principles of getting strength and perception up and getting all my survivability gear. But thankfully, I learned a lot, and I'm trying to help other fellow healers to not make the same mistakes I did. Alright guys, I hope this helped you out. If it did, please like and subscribe and let me know in the comments which set you'll be going for, or if you have any other recommendations. Remember, remember, we're all trying to figure this out together, as it is really complex in Throne and Liberty. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video.